going to be the MC also on that day. So kind of an ageless engagement. You're very welcome. My name is Chinedu Ikudemma, for those who may not know. I spent 26 years in Citibank from 1991 to 2017. So I reckon I have the qualifications to be here speaking to you. I think we're going to, how do I say, the photographer, you're there? I think the idea is to invite or allow those who are going to join the Zoom later, because we wanted to make sure that you're here. I know it was a bit rainy. We've may not want to come. So there'll be nobody on Zoom right now. But what we're going to do is something a bit simple. We're going to try and recognize the different generations of City bankers and Manila Gold bankers who are in this hall. And how we're going to do it is that we will ask different generations. And by the way, in life, a generation is like 30 years, okay? Because you live to be 70, 90. But in a career, because careers last about 30 years, a generation is 10 years, okay? So how we'll do it is we'll ask each generation, there'll be about 5 generations, to stand. And there'll be light music. And others will clap for them and go and shake their hands. And if you don't know them, you get introduced, okay? So each generation will have about 2 or 3 minutes. Then we'll call the next generation, okay? So let's see how that goes. DJ, play something in our generation. Nothing, not Gen Z music, eh? Something kind of light and light-hearted. So on that note, the bank opened in 1984. And the years are inclusive. So we're going to do 1984 to 1993. If you joined the bank, okay, not if you were in the bank, just if you joined the bank between 1984 and 1993, please stand to your feet. Others should just be clapping. Wonderful. This is a very, very diligent. You can see how timely they are, okay? Yeah. For others, please clap for them. If you don't know anybody amongst them, go and have a handshake. I also joined the bank in 1991, so you can also clap for me. Excellent, excellent. Now, photographer, you need to get these generations, okay? Take pictures very quickly.
Let's get together.
Exactly. Okay, excellent. So please get together this generation. Where is it best? I think here. Here.
Be careful.
Yes, be careful with the wires, okay? Yes. Okay. Is this the best place to take the picture? Be a bit crowded. Don't touch it. You know, it's been programmed to to behave in certain ways, okay?
Properly then because of the bar.
This is the generation that joined before you could have laptops for each person. When we used to share PC, let's get down, okay? Are we okay? Okay? When we used to share PC, is Yinka Bolo here? She used to dominate the PC on the platform.
I used 2 car batteries on the floor.
You can imagine that.
Who can't you see?
Okay?
Oh,
Okay, Madam, Shade, they're not seeing you. Okay. If you're behind, you can stand on your toes. It's not a stall at Scully. Okay. Excellent. This is the first generation. Big round of applause again. Excellent. Okay, as this generation gets to their seat. No, you can do that later. That is analysis. You know, when you do volumetric analysis in chemistry, you know. Now, the next generation, if you join the bank between 1994 and 2003, please get to your feet. 1994 to 2003. Excellent. By the way, as your MC, I will have the privilege of joining each picture. So please come and join me on the platform. Please come and have your picture. If you joined between 1994 and 2003, thank you. I think we can briefly move this to the side. So we have a bit more range. If you notice, this was the generation where we were now focusing on equity, okay, making sure there's balance. Yeah? Because I think that we only hired one guy in this generation. This was EBI's work. Okay. Excellent. This was the generation when the compass rose, city never sleeps, gave way to the umbrella, you know, and because that merger happened in 1998. Excellent. Okay. If you joined the bank between 2004 and 2013, between 2004 and 2013. Please come to the podium. Please come and join me. I will keep you company. Between 2004 and 2013. You're welcome. Yeah? Boya Ajayi, MD of RAND. Excellent. You see, what you will find is that this generation and the one after them, most of them will join Zoom. Okay. Okay. Now, if you join between 2014 and 2023, between 2014 and 2023, okay, we're now going towards AI generation. Those ones, they will create the events. They don't have to attend, okay? Then they have to work. They had work, okay? And if you joined between 2024 and 2026, that means you joined and left or whatever. Okay, great. So please, a big round of applause for all of us, okay? I'll tell you something. My first mentor when I joined the bank is here. Kole Olofoyeku. Please give him a big round of applause. Kole was the tallest man in the bank. He was and still is an institution. He used to sit on the FT floor, kind of, and then he will walk to the banking area. He will walk like this. The cash officer was called Chris Ogu, if I remember. And Joseph Eguatu, was the head teller. And then we were all in cash and tellers as MAs. And because there were a few challenges there, we were there for so long. So we'll go to Kole and say, Kole, we have to, what's his name? Boye Gashongonuga was my peer as an MA. We go to him and say, Kole, we have to leave cash and tellers because we are having overages, shortages. We are going to see Imran Khan to sign off ticket. This was the craziest experience to have because, Imran is in his office. Florence Ureme was his secretary. And if you are going, people are looking at you like you are going to be killed. So across the cash and tellers, they are watching you go with trepidation, one step at a time, towards Imran's office. You now see Florence, okay, you want to see him? You can go in. You go in. So the day I processed savings accounts interest, and I was praised, Christian Butu, everybody said, oh, this is so wonderful. So I was feeling very good. I didn't realize there was an overage. So it was ICU that came up with this and said, oh, this matter you have to do a reversal. Reversal. Chris Ogu called me. Go and write a memo. I said, what memo? He said, address the memo to this bull. Imran Khan. I said, what? I said, Imran Khan, yes. But I said, but I report to you. He said, no. Address the memo to Imran Khan. So I wrote this memo. I now gave to him. He initialed it. I said, okay, I should carry it to Imran. I said, but I thought I'll give you there. He said, no, you take it there. So I remember the day I was one, because when we were AMAs, Boyega can confirm, AMAs were often sacked very easily. If you don't pass L-card or ELOPS, or if you get a wrong review, so we were paid half housing. So if housing was 5 naira, they paid us 250. Just like when they sack you, the bank doesn't lose too much money. So here I was with my career on the line, with this overage ticket, walking to Imran Khan's office. And I was calculating what will happen to me, how will I manage, and all that. And by the time I got to Imran, he said, what is this? I said, there was, we processed savings, there was a mistake, and all that. He just signed. He signed with a red pen. He used to sign, he said, he just signed. And I stood there. So he said, is there anything else? I said, no. He said, so you can go. I said, okay, sir. It was a very interesting time. Is Fidelis Ayebe going to join us? Fidelis Ayebe. Fidelis, in those days, all our seniors they were called Lord. If you notice recently, I was addressing Colley, I called him Lord Colley. Because that's what he said, Lord Michael, Lord Colley. And in that era, it's not like now where you have to watch your language. You have to be nice. And I'll tell you what used to happen in Cash and Tellers. There was a guy there called Lekon. Lekon had a slight tummy. Okay? Lekon. There was Niyi. He was a very jazzy guy, There was Hawa. There was Ngozi Omokenyi, who is now the ED of operations. Okay. And there was Franklin Amadi and all that. And we joined them. So someday, the ICU came to see Joseph Eguato. And they said, how many tellers do you have? And Joseph Eguato looked. He said, I have 5.5 tellers. He said, what? He said, yes, 5.5. That guy there, that junk man, that Franklin is a junk man. He's a half teller. This is. Then he will say, Leko, carry your fat tummy and come here. It was a very, you could say literally almost anything. It was a very abrasive, and they call it chewing. So sometimes after you are chewed, you go to there's some cubicle in the back. You go there and you weep, you cry, you've been chewed, their life is about to end. After crying, you come out. There's a guy called Solomon who used to serve us tea. So, Solomon, how many of you remember Solomon? Solomon used to serve, so you could bring me coffee. That coffee used to help to assuage the challenges of the time. We used to have wonderful parties, by the way. Wonderful parties. The parties got a bit less wonderful with time. There was a party, I think this must have been in 1992 or something like that. At that time, because most of us were young people, we used to admire each other. There was a lot of in-house transaction, out-house, all those kind of things. So usually, the things you used to say, they call huggy beer. The one that you learn to hug. They used to have hot legs. Say it was the mini era. People were dressed like this. In the banking hall, you'll be swooning. If you are swooning, you make a mistake. So there was a hot legs competition. So this hot legs competition in the Christmas party. So we all gathered in this restaurant, All Seasons or something. They were having this hot legs competition, and the winners were announced. I remember the winners, so I will just say who the winners were. Okay, there were three contestants. Okay, there was Lilian Obonna, there was Kanoaya Ogwebu. The winner was Angela Neken. Yes, she won the hot legs competition. Okay, so the guys were having hot legs, huh? The ladies in the bank are very powerful. So Funke Oshubodu, Oyinkon Thomas, then Dewale now, they sat down and said they want to have a hot chest competition. Hey. This was very complicated though. They said if the guys have been going around doing hot legs admiration, they too, they want to see hot chest competition. So this was a very complex affair. It became a big issue. They said unless there's a hot chess competition, the party will not continue. So before you knew it, they started calling people for hot chess. Emeke Muwa, and Nobot Mafeni, he marched onto the stage. Mike and Daxon marched onto the stage. Ben Akabueze marched onto the stage. And Navid Riaz. Navid was the MD then. Very jazzy guy, suave, used to, if you see him walking, so they call him to the stage. About 5 of them. So they stood there with their clothes on, their wives were there, everything. It's okay. So how do you now handle hot chests in this environment? They said, the women said, no. No. They have to show their chests. Hey. This was getting very complex, okay? So as they stood there for about 5 minutes, nobody was moving. What was his name? Mike and Daxon was wearing a dashiki. So at some point, Mike removed his dashiki to show his hot chest. So hot chest competition has started. So Mike removed this thing, flexed his muscles. Next thing, Emeke Mowa went and removed the Benakebue's glasses, to cause confusion for him. But ultimately, Benakabueze also did his hot chest. Emeke Muwa did his hot chest. So he now got to Mr. Riaz, Navid Riaz. Navid Nashomano. Navid, he stood, he said, okay. So he started unbuttoning his shirt very slowly. People were screaming, yeah. This was our MD, okay? Buttoning his shirt, the first button. Second button, third button. So people were very excited. Then he opened the shirt like this and closed it. Oh! Of course he won. For those who joined the bank after 2000 and is it 2000 and what now? When did Mr. Michel Akkad leave the bank? It was 2001 or so, 2000. Because all our MDs were very polite. There was the Somaseka Amurapu Somaseka. Now, Amurapu was an intellectual, a real intellectual. One of the most frightening things for you was to be stuck with Amurapu Somaseka in a cocktail. Because you're there. So, how are you? What's that? Oh, what kind of wine is this? So you tell, okay, this is red wine. So do you know how red wine is made? And this is your MD, okay? So you can't sound vacant. It's made with grapes. Do you know how the grapes are grown? The kind of soil, He will go into, so it was extraordinary, engaging. So people tended to avoid Amurapu Somaseka because he will engage you in very intellectual conversations. So by the time he left, Navid became the MD. Navid was very suave, as I said. Then when Navid became like Africa head out of Nairobi, Michel Akkad became the MD. Michel came from Senegal, was French-speaking, Lebanese, very, very ebullient guy. And when Michel came, there are some things he didn't like. He would send an email. The email would say, dumb, stupid. People had never seen such a language. So people like Oyinko and Co will go and see him. Oh, Nigerians are very sensitive. You shouldn't use this kind of language. This. But he was an extraordinary guy. He was a real business person and did a lot for staff, okay? He was the one that introduced a lot of, he expanded, put Nigerians on the board and stuff, because before then, that was not the case. So he appointed the first board members and all that. So great guy, but it was a big shock to us. So then I think there was a time he was having a town hall because people had been traumatized. So he was having a town hall, so he stood like I'm standing here. And staff usually kind of stand around. Meanwhile, staff were standing near to the road. He said, come closer. Nobody moved. Because people were afraid of him, okay? But he ultimately was a good guy. He did a lot for the bank and moved us on. I think by the time he moved, I think he was succeeded by who now? Michelle was succeeded by, was it KQ? No, Peter Harris was acting, okay? Yeah, so Peter Harris was acting. Peter Harris was acting. Oh, yeah, he was acting, okay? Arif Usmani, okay. Yeah, yes, exactly. That was Arif. It was Arif Usmani. Arif was a pure intellectual. I used to have meetings. Then I was head of risk for commercial bank. I used to have meetings with Arif every morning by 8 o'clock. So every morning on Fridays by 8 o'clock because we were having challenges in the commercial bank portfolio. So I will come early and go to his office by 8 a.m. I get in. So one day I was coming, it rained like this. There was just traffic. And I was watching my clock in the car. It was, 7:45. I had been on the road for 3 hours. 7:50. 7:55. I said, no, I cannot go late to this meeting with this man. So I was knocking at Deshola Street. Okay? So I just swerved, parked my car in the traffic, dragged my bag and started running. I was running, I ran across onto Lakija, ran to the office, got to my desk, dropped whatever. By the time I got to his door, it was 7:59, 30 seconds. I was panting, I did like this and opened the door. Good morning, sir. And it was like nothing had happened. But, he was very interesting man. He was succeeded by Khalid Qurashi, if I remember. Briefly by Faram Farouki, okay, which didn't quite finalize. Then they had whatever. I'll tell you about the party we had at Sheraton Hotel. I think this was 93 or 94, whatever. And at this party, there was this very beautiful young woman who was singing. A song. I wanna. Wait, can you complete that? I wanna. You're on your own. So this lady was going around to say, okay, I wanna. So she was going around going to our bosses, I wanna. These bosses were sitting there with their wives. Say, I wanna. Okay. So I think he got to one of our Indian organs. I wanna say, I can't say. I can't say. No, great. The program is going to start at 6:30. Where are we? What's the time? Okay, we're waiting for the guest of honor. So I'll keep you engaged, okay? Now I've been speaking to you for a few minutes. I know some of you also have stories you want to share. So I offer you, whoever wants to come on and say something serious, funny, challenging. Then now, Koro, do you want me to discuss the TGIF that was arranged by Ediri? Where's Ediri? Where's Ediri, please? Okay. Ediri arranged the TGIF that was very controversial. Do you want me to talk about it? Yeah? You want a flat screen TV. It's family. You don't mind? Say you don't mind.
It's family.
Okay. Okay. So Nena is here. She says she's family, okay? This is public knowledge. Ediri she's a very nice lady, okay? She was in the executive that arranged this TGIF. And the bank was very mischievous then. They said you should put if I could. Okay? If I could, is assuming there was no obstacle, assuming there was no impediment, who would you have gone to court? Who would you have sought to be your friend? Whether married or not. And they put a massive prize against this. This was when flat screen TVs came out. The first prize was flat screen TV. All kinds of very jazzy prizes. That whoever won this thing will get the prize. So on the day all of us were there, my sister Fumi, well done, you're welcome, okay? All of us were there, and everybody this was one of the best attended TGIs because people wanted to know who will win if I could. I think on the men's side, it was won by, I think, was it Jibril Anekada or somebody? That was a bit less controversial. For the ladies' side, my sister was there with the husband, okay? And they say, if I could. But you know, you had this wonderful flat screen TV, which we couldn't afford. It was the price. So when they counted the vote, the winner was our dear sister, and then, no, Koro, please stand to your feet. Please start, clap for her. You know, I think the husband didn't know how to look. How can I be here? People are doing if I could voting for my wife. But I'm sure, and then I thought to him, calm down, there's this flat screen. Let's get it in. Let us go home with the flat screen. We can discuss other matters. I remember one of our colleagues, by the way, if you don't mind, in the midst of this, some of us are no longer here. We've lost a good number of colleagues. Tek Koroye, Same Zogo, Tommy Sin, and a number of others. So if you may indulge and stand to your feet, let's observe a minute silence for them. May their souls rest in peace. Please have your seat. We have to pay this respect before I continue, because I was going to talk about Tek Koroye. Tek was the head of the trade area. Then in the CVC building, this was where they had the Canadian High Commission, just next to us. And Tek was an extraordinarily dramatic man. Okay, so at that time, Sam Ezogo was in texting. Also, a man called Benose Moiseli was also in texting. These were the seniors then. So, Tek's chair is like there, okay? Where Chidima and Koa, okay? And Benose's desk is here. And Tek wants to talk to Benose. So at that time, Owa Obanile and Femi Olaloku and Taiwo Titi were in automation support, and they were just next to trade. And Tek picks up the phone. He doesn't ask Benose to come. Picks up the phone and faces the window and says, Benose. So Benose is here, and he's answering the call from Tek. And Tek is gesticulating and all that. What is this about? This. And Benose is responding here. It was pure drama, you know. It was really extraordinary watching. These are extraordinary characters, okay? And I remember there was a sweep of trade. And when they sweep, at that time, Tek Koroye used to report to John Abo. And John was known as, where's Nelson Udwak? there's this story, I don't know whether it's true. I think John Abo apparently invited Nelson to come and see him. And Nelson was smiling even though he was being chewed. So John says, why are you showing me your teeth? Am I a dentist? Now this is what I heard, okay? Okay. So John Abo was reputed as a master chewer. He used to be, of course, chairman of EcoBank, extraordinary man, okay? And there was this famous, we didn't witness this, but this was the famous line that he had with Benos then. So Benos used to be an AMA. So Benos, I think Benos was talking about some transaction. And he says, Benos, enable and PowerPoint, that wasn't PowerPoint, it was something else. Enable and Lotus, I defer to you, but you cannot teach me banking. So he says, Benos, put me on speaker. Benos will say that. He said, all the ladies on your street know you're a banker. You come to work, you wear a jazzy tie. Meanwhile, this you can do. And this is his own speaker. He used to be an extraordinary time. But, going back to that era, I remember when Kayode Bello, is he here? Oh, no. Kayode was the ultimate toaster. Oh, no, come on. Kayode, he wear his shirt, he put his hand like this, That time he used to start shirts, okay? So the shirt, he put his hand like that, and he had his pattern tie, and this was the time he used pins, to hold it. So instead of clips, he had this specialized, pins to put on the tie, and he would come. I remember when he came to Unilag to come and talk to us about NIB. Jesus, the way it was going, we say, my God, we must get into this bank. We must get into this bank. He was completely extraordinary as a marketer for the institution, okay? And for those who were privileged to hear him try to talk about Citibank, it was a privilege, okay? And he was the one that converted me from being an engineer to a banker from his toasting. Okay? A round of applause for Kayode. Forgive me. Some of the most stylish ladies in the bank are on this table. Yeah? I'm saying, I was a very young boy then, but even in the banking hall, okay? Because the banking hall on Idowutelo was vast. So when you walk in, you walk like 40 meters. From the banking hall to Fumi Joshua Dogun's customer service. Okay, so it was like you had to have confidence to make that walk. You had to have confidence. So you walk, okay? So then, Madame Yawande Amusho, extraordinary. She used to wear this bangle chain. Okay, are you joking? Are you joking? And she's moving, Even when she was pregnant, the style, you say, wow. Wow. My sister Shola, nah. We'll be small boy, eh? But with that, this one, she find plenty. Her birthday is February 29th. Are you joking? We wait, eh? When it's February, we all make sure that we remember. Eh? I was privileged to go and join the energy group where I was working with Shola. My brother Bayo Adeleke. Bayo joined energy group from CCBG. Bayo is the only person I have seen chew a customer, and the customer loved him more. I'm telling you. There was a guy from Slumbeji, who used to give us grief. The guy would demand this. So one day he came to the bank, Bayo said, hey, calm down. Bayo chewed the guy. The next month, the revenues increased. The business increased. I was privileged to work with truly exceptional people in Energy Group, by the way, and just to mention them, Shola, Bayadeleke, Jojo KK, Remy Cole along the journey, and Fumi Adeajayi, of course, now. Fumi, my sister, that will speak French together, and all that. Okay, let me say this one now, so I don't have to say it. Our moderator today is Bola Adeshola. I'll go still introduce him from Treasury in, that time. If you saw a ticket from Treasury in Trops, and this ticket is local currency because that she was on local currency, you made sure it was done very quickly. Because if there is a delay, Dr. Bola will come directly and personally and ask you why that ticket is delayed. Whether your guy is there or not is not important. And one thing that struck me then was, when Bola was going to take a ticket or something to be signed by the MD, she didn't walk, She used to run. She used to jog to Navid's office. So I would say to myself, oh my God, this woman, if you are a slacker, you are not going to survive. Extraordinary lady. And we'll talk more about you. Don't worry. I'm saying the interesting ones now. Irun Ejibe. She's looking at me like, what was he going to say now? Irun, very stylish, always. I think that's something I remember always with a lot of pleasure. In Kemo Dibeli, possibly the calmest person that ever walked through the doors of Citibank. Yes, possibly the most serene and calmest person that ever walked through the doors of the bank, Nkem, a pleasure to have you here. Okay. Boyega Shongonuga. Please clap for him. Boyega is a pure intellectual. He's sitting beside Kole Olowo Foyeku. So I'll tell you something that happened that involved Boyega and Kole when we were MAs. When we were MAs, we used to go for what they called Let's Meet. It was Ramiro Munoz who would write us a note, Let's Meet. It was the most frightening note we got. Let's meet. Because in this Let's Meet, you get there will be John Abo. There will be Kole Olowo Foyeku. All the people feared in the bank. There will be Mike and Daxon, Adeayemi, and all that. And they will be throwing questions at you which you have to answer. Okay? And you have to answer like an expert. So I remember there was once when, okay, I think the guest of honor is here. Please stand to your feet to welcome him. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. For those of you who came late, when I let my hair down, not that I have so much hair, you've missed a lot. We'll now get into the formal program, okay? Thank you very much. There's something there. Excellent. I think, if I may just ask, is the Zoom link now open? The Zoom link is open. And can you ask the guys on the Zoom link to raise their hands just to make sure that, are they hearing me? Are they hearing us? They can hear us? Okay. If they can hear me, if you're on the link, please raise your hands or clap, make some gesture. Yes. Are they clapping? Okay, thank you. Can it be clearer? Excellent. Okay, so that's that. So I want to say welcome to all of us, Citibankers, associates. I will be introducing the guest of honor directly, so there will be protocols in that respect. But beyond that, you may consider that other protocols are observed. So beyond the protocols that I shall be observing in introducing the guest of honor. My name is Chinedu Ikudema, guest of honor. I have the privilege of joining the board a few months after you resigned from it in 2015. Of course, we all know your pedigree. I will be the master of ceremony for the day. Is Michelle Matthews here? Please stand to your feet, Michelle. Michelle will be supporting me when we are doing the Q&A, also collating some of the questions coming from the Zoom link and all that. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for accepting and for asking to do this. I will cut to the chase and get to the program right away by introducing the moderator and the guest of honor. Remy, if you may just pause for a moment. Okay. I want to recognize those who have put this program together. This program has been put together by the NIB Citibank Forum, specifically the Social Activities Committee, led by Mrs. Remy Odunlami. Remy, may you stand to your feet. Remy is a former executive director of Citibank and an exceptional risk manager, renowned both in Nigeria and outside. Thank you for the sacrifice in doing this. Remy is, when I came here, I came early. I came by just after 5. Remy was here already. She is a specialist in looking after people. Even when we used to go to the beaches in those days as younger people, Remy will look after all of us while we are running around on the sand, and she's making sure that we're getting food and all that. So she's something that she's been doing for a bit. So thank you very much, Remy. Our moderator for the day is a veteran of the bank and of the banking industry. Mrs. Bola Adeshola is chairman of EcoBank Nigeria Limited and chairman board of trustees of the Healthcare Federation of Nigeria. She's also a director of the Currency Exchange, TCX, in the Netherlands, a multilateral finance institution, and serves on the boards of Central Securities Clearing System, PLC, CSCS, and Guinness, Nigeria. With over 35 years of banking experience, she previously served as a senior vice chairman, Africa at Stanchart, and CEO of Stanchart Nigeria and West Africa. An alumna of Harvard Business School and Lagos Business School, Bola is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Nigeria, and the Institute of Directors. She is widely respected for her contributions to financial inclusion, sustainable development, and advancing women's leadership across Africa. You may note that there's not a comment on Citibank there, so I will add that one. Not what I said earlier. Bola, as I said, in the course of her journey in Citibank, was the head of the local currency desk of Treasury of Citibank, Nigeria. Bola was the first treasurer of Citibank, Tanzania. She was a pioneer treasurer. She had gone there along with Emeke Umuwa, who was the first MD of that bank, the late Josephine Amobi, who was the first corporate bank head, and Eddie Obogo, who was the first head of operations. She distinguished herself in that position and returned to Nigeria subsequently, joined the corporate bank, corporate finance, and was working on some of our investment banking products before she left the bank. Madam, I hope I'm correct. Thank you very much. So that is the nexus with the bank. And I have a very big task of introducing our guest speaker. Before I go into the introduction, I will make an observation, personal observation. A lot of times we are entranced by the performance of power, by the reputation of those in office, by the color and, would I say, the exceptional and flagrant display of the various paraphernalia of office and power. What is often not clear to us is that what ultimately benefits society, what lasts and what is durable, is what is constructed by the thinkers that enable that power. If you look today at the US, for example, you hear of George Washington, you hear of Donald Trump, you hear of Lincoln, Kennedy. But the US is a success of an idea that was constructed by thinkers. And some of the greatest thinkers who built this idea were Thomas Jefferson. Okay? You don't hear too much about him. Benjamin Franklin. And in reality, the thinkers are the people that ultimately enable us to advance. And today we are talking of a thinker, an exceptional thinker. One of the best in the country in this season. And I am honored to introduce him. Yemi Osinbajo, by the way, I took a tutorial on how to pronounce your name correctly, because I'm sure when I came here earlier, there were all kinds of spellings and pronunciations. So I called Shola Fabure and said to her, Madam, you were the person dealing with our vice president before. How do you pronounce this name? So she called one of the Jebu guys in her office, called Sikuru. Sikuru came and said, it's called Osinbajo. So it means the child has returned from a journey. He says, and it's a deep Ijebu expression. Just to let you know, I do my homework. Okay, so here we go. Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, Grand Commander of Order of the Niger, GCON, immediate past president, vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a teacher, a technocrat, a politician, a legal titan, a pastor, a husband, father, grandfather, a thinker. Professor Osinbajo served as the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from 2015 May to May 2023. Prior to this, he was the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State from 1999 to 2007, where he led far-reaching judicial reforms that became models for replication across the Nigerian Federation, and actually indeed across Africa, because he's been leading various initiatives across Africa and globally. Before his political career, Professor Osinbajo was a professor of public law at University of Lagos and a founding partner of Simmons Cooper, one of Nigeria's leading commercial law firms. He was conferred with the prestigious rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He served in the justice sector of the United Nations Mission in Somalia. And I just listened to one of his speeches where he was talking about his time in Mogadishu. When he was then at that point, he is still a pastor. And he said he liked his Heineken. And used to take some Heineken. So he walked in on some of his colleagues in Mogadishu, having ordered his Heineken, and the guys were hiding their drinks. And he said, sorry, why are you doing this? As a Danish guy, he said, Jorgen, why are you hiding your drink? He said, no, but you're a priest. So he said that's the day he made the decision to stop drinking. VP, I hope I'm right. So he was in Somalia, was a member of the UN Secretary General's Committee on the Rules of Conduct and Discipline for Peacekeeping Forces. He has also served as the ethics advisor to the Board of African Development Bank and as an independent director of Citibank Nigeria from December 2008 to April 2015. During his tenure as VP, Professor Osinbajo played a central role in the formulation and implementation of key national policies and initiatives, particularly in the areas of economic reform, social investment, human capital development, and digital and creative economy, climate action, and energy security. He chaired the National Council, Economic Council, comprising all state governors of Nigeria, and led the Inter-Ministerial Energy Transition Implementation Working Group, which developed and executed Nigeria's energy transition plan in 2022. Under his leadership, 3 national development plans were formulated and implemented, and he oversaw the successful rollout of Nigeria's economic sustainability plan in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He founded the Northeast Children's Trust, which supports sustainable learning ecosystems for children orphaned by insurgency in the Northeast of Nigeria. I could go on, there's this Christian song, day will come, night will come. If I keep praising, if I keep talking about, we will spend half of the time describing the man. I think in summary, we have with us a preeminent legal luminary, a technocrat, a businessman, a politician, a humanist, a pastor, and a citizen of Nigeria who is proud of Nigeria. I have the privilege and honor of inviting Professor Yemi Osinbajo to come and make his speech. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Mr. Chinedu Ikudima, who spent at least 26 years at the Citi Group, founded the Nova Bank. He joined Citibank as Group Chief Credit Officer. In January 2022, he was Group Executive and Group Chief. I could go on and on. I would go on and we would never end. You know. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, everyone, for the very warm welcome. And I mustn't take too much time today because I'm sure that many of us want to watch the quarterfinals. But let me begin by thanking the organizers of this NIB Citibank Family Reunion for their very generous and kind invitation to me to join you to participate. As you've heard already, I am also an alumnus of the bank, of Citibank, having served as an independent director for 2 terms. My second term was interrupted by my nomination as vice presidential candidate of the APC. I'm extremely glad to be here. I've seen many old faces who are here. Some have apologized for not keeping in touch, and have accepted their apologies. I'm to speak for a few minutes, really, on the subject, the office of the citizen, a social contract for engagement and impact. The office of the citizen, a social contract for engagement and impact. It was really the Greeks who started this controversy around the office of the citizen. especially Aristotle, is credited with the invention of that idea that good citizenship is not just the enjoyment of rights, but participation, active participation in public life. Indeed, the Greek word idiotis, like idiot. This is where we get the word idiot from. It's actually the word for anyone who does not take an interest in public life. So idiot is the word for those who do not take an interest in public life, going by the Greeks. It was also Frankfurter, the American chief judge, he was justice of the Supreme Court, as well as a professor of law, who refined the concept with those words, that are very insightful. In a democracy, the highest office is the office of the citizen. In a democracy, the highest office is the office of the citizen. So there are several other people in Nigeria, for instance, Yemi Adamoleku, enough is enough, and such like individuals have even refined it further in their advocacy around the office of the citizenship, civic and political responsibility of citizenship and all that. But I think it is the NIB Citibank people who have nailed it by actually saying that there is in fact a social contract between us and our communities to participate in public life, in the shaping of social and economic and political destinies of our country. And this leads me to a point I hope we will take away from here, namely that there is a heavier burden of responsibility on the elite of any society, especially in a developing country, where only a few, very few, have access to good education or economic success. That there is a heavier burden on that group of people who can be referred to as the elite. Now, who are these people who can be referred to as the elite? They are those who have the benefit of education, economic power, or social influence, or one of the three, or all together. The elite would include politicians, religious leaders, business and professional persons, civil society activists of various types, people like you and I. And I must say that we're incredibly fortunate because we have access to and leadership that's influential on very many platforms, in media, in business, academic platforms, religious platforms, political or civil society organizations. We, the elite dominate thought leadership as educators, as writers, as influencers. In many ways, in our individual or collective capacities, we determine not only the formal rules of society, but also the informal rules, even the fashion, the vogues in a society. What people are supposed to respect, what is respected, is what the elite say it is, whether consciously or unconsciously. So in sum, many times we find that the elite profoundly shape the ways that the state of their communities and ultimately the destinies of their communities end up. We set the standards in many ways, even what is socially acceptable. When people talk about the Nigerian wedding, for instance, it's the elite gathered in elaborately decorated halls at Harbour Point or perhaps in Kano or Port Harcourt or wherever else. The dominance of the elite is always evidenced by their easy access to so many different things, to capital, to patronage, to political power. Most of us who are seated here today are probably 1, 2, maybe maximum 3 phone calls away from the most influential people in this state where we're at, or in several other states, or even in the country. Maybe 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls. In fact, I'm here because somebody made a call, right? 1 call away. And that's the case with most of us who are here. So the point really is that even when the elite is not a formal club, even when we are not organized formally, when we don't physically congregate, or even recognize our status as such, it is evident that we are indeed, sometimes by circumstances of birth, sometimes by effort, or sometimes by just concession, we are better off than the vast majority of our peers. And every society has its elite, almost without exception. And because of the tremendous implicit and explicit influence that they wield, it is the elite in those societies that shape the political and economic destinies of their countries. So the elite, both individually and collectively, have a responsibility, an obligation to society, to plan society, to organize it, to order it, to reorder it, and above all, to make sacrifices for it, for the maximum benefit and participation of all people. So how do they do that? It's by participation in public life. Participation in public life, in one shape or form or the other. This is the responsibility that comes with the privilege of being in the elite. It is the burden of privilege. So it is our own obligation, individually and collectively, to chart the course for millions. We define and house the ethos and the public sense of the people. It is our own expected role to find common cause across professions, vocations, ethnicities, and even faiths, to define the minimum terms and conditions for the safety, security, the growth, the prosperity of our communities. So it is clear that we are the ones who define what is lofty, what is noble, what is deserving of honor, how these values can be sustained, how they can be preserved, how they can be enforced. This is the burden of privilege. The French say, noblesse oblige. And that conveys the idea that those who enjoy wealth, privilege, power, education, or high social status have a moral duty to use their advantage in the service of, and in the service of others, and for the common good. But there is a common view, very common view, and I'm sure some of us here would agree with it, that Nigeria's intellectuals, professionals, business leaders, or even religious leaders, the elite, the Nigerian elite, are successful as individuals, but have failed as a collective. But sadly, it's not the success of individuals that determines the destiny of a nation. It is whether those who have the influence, knowledge, and privilege can come together to think deeply about the future of their society and act in the common good. So that's what distinguishes a responsible elite, and people will because people will naturally pursue their enlightened interests, their own interests. But an enlightened elite understand that their own future is secure only when the wider society is stable, when the wider society is just and prosperous. And if you look through history, history illustrates very powerfully how it is that the elite, responsible elite, can shape the future of their nations and communities for generations. If you look at the framers of the American Constitution, they were not saints, they were not spirits, they were ordinary people. Some had serious personal failings and flaws, some broke laws, some were outright outlaws in so many ways. But they helped to shape their societies. They were able to rise above themselves and agree on enduring principles of liberty, of justice, of accountable government. And more than 2 centuries later, these principles that these people agreed on continue to hold the American Republic together because generation after generation defended them. An even much older example is the Magna Carta of 1215. That Magna Carta is where the English barons, for those of us who are familiar with or who like history, where the English barons forced King John to accept that even the king was subject to the law. That was the beginning of the rule of law. Sword in hand, they said, you will agree with us that even you, the king, must be subject to the law. They declared, and in the words, and these words have become historic, no free man shall be taken or imprisoned except by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. That's where we have juries from and all that. And another one is they say, to none will we sell, To none will we deny or delay right or justice. And these remarkable words have become the foundation of constitutional government, the rule of law, representative institutions, and independent judiciary for years and years after. These two were ordinary men and women. They were not spirits. That Magna Carta, it has become the foundation of practically every charter of freedom, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, till this very day. These people were ordinary men and women. There's nothing special about them. They didn't even have the kind of education that you and I have. Many of them did not even go to universities. Although these societies, America and cited only to America and the UK, were deeply flawed, they tolerated slavery, they tolerated colonialism, racial discrimination, and terrible wars. Yet, because they had established enduring principles, later generations were able to challenge those injustices using the very values that their predecessors had proclaimed. Their ideals became the standard by which they judged themselves and corrected their mistakes. The same principle explains why in countries such as Britain, people fiercely, such as the United Kingdom, people fiercely protect the independence of their courts. The rule of law is not simply a moral ideal, it's the foundation of everybody's security and prosperity. And this is where we, as a nation, face our greatest challenge. We don't lack gifted people. We have accomplished scholars, respected professionals, successful entrepreneurs, influential clerics, experienced public servants. But what we lack is a shared commitment among these privileged groups to place the nation's long-term interests above personal advantage. That's what we lack. That little thing to come together with a common purpose and to place the interests of the collective against our personal interests. The poverty we see, the weakening of our institutions, the corruption of our politics, and the growing loss of public trust, they're not simply failures of government. They are also the consequence of an elite that has often, too often, failed to act as a true steward of society. An elite that has failed to function effectively in the office of the citizen and failed to live up to the social contract between us and the majority of the citizenry who are poor, miserable, and helpless. No nation is transformed by individual brilliance or success alone. It is transformed by men and women who influence their societies, but with the courage to think beyond themselves, to build consensus around enduring values, and accept that serving the common good is, in the end, the surest way of preserving their own future. That is the obligation of every responsible elite, and is also the challenge before our country today. But to be fair, practically every one of us is concerned about Nigeria. We're always talking about various Nigerian issues. It's almost impossible to find two Nigerians, especially the elite, who are not talking about the problems of Nigeria. Some of us are on multiple chat groups talking about these same things. So most of us are socially conscious. It's just that many times we don't even have room for proper expression of our consciousness. I remember during the no subsidy removal demonstration, I think it was 2009 or 2010, 2012. I was on the board then of Citi, and Akin Daudu, is Akin here? No, he's not here. Okay, Akin Daudu was, I think, was COO at the time. And during the course of this demonstration that was going on, we were both on the streets somewhere in Ikoyi, marching. You know how tall Aki is. You can see him from anywhere. So I went up and said, what are you doing? He looked at me and said, what are you two doing here? We're out there on the streets. The truth is that we may all have different appetites for politics or public life. Some have a keener appetite than others. But I believe that in whatever shape or form that we can, we should make the effort to participate or influence the public space. Let me very quickly run through my own journey in public life and governance. And I begin by answering the question, why did I even get involved in politics and government? And there are a few core. The first is that, like I'm sure several here, I've always had the burden to change things. I believe also in the critical role of government. So just as most of us have a deep personal burden that things must change, we have a burden that, look, anything that is wrong, we can make it right. We can do better. We can improve. And that's in whatever area of governance or human existence, we can be better. Some are concerned about the rights of people being violated. Some are concerned about corruption in government. Some are concerned about other social problems, social issues, education, healthcare, etc. So what we usually do, we either join an existing organization or we start our own. And we hope that the pressure group that we create will make a difference to a particular problem. I had the same experience. Being a lawyer, I was dissatisfied with the fact that many people were denied justice because they could not pay lawyers for legal defense when they were charged for offenses and all that. Many times as a young lawyer, I was being caught. And just the cost of lawyers to people who have been charged with offenses, picked off the road and charged with offenses, just incredible. Many could not even afford bail while they were in custody. I was also concerned about corruption in government and in the judiciary. So I joined various human rights groups. I was advisor to the Radical News Weekly. I co-founded Integrity, an anti-corruption organization. We did many different things. For example, we offered our services and those of volunteers to defend accused persons in court. We published a pamphlet in the anti-corruption organization called Scrutiny, calling out corruption. Yes, hundreds of people may have been impacted, but this is a country of millions of people. So it soon dawned on me that the only way to scale is by getting government to act. Only government has the resources and the machinery and authority to make change at scale. And that theory was proved when I was appointed Attorney General of Lagos State by then Governor Bola Tinubu, who, of course, as we all know, is president today of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That was in 1999. That was a fantastic opportunity to test all the theories that I had tested in civil society, in various pressure groups and all that. So we established a citizens' rights department in the Ministry of Justice. We established the Office of the Public Defender, government lawyers whose duty it was to provide legal services to the poor or indigent in society. So while in our NGOs, we could only afford a few volunteers who sometimes, found that the police was uncooperative, now we had the force and resources of government behind scores and scores of lawyers. And the police had to work hand in hand with them because they themselves were government officials. Today, many ministries of justice, including the Federal Ministry of Justice, have a Directorate of Citizens' Rights. We established citizens' mediation centers. They help to resolve more cases than the magistrates could handle at the time. Magistrates in total were handling about 2,000 cases. Several landlord and tenant cases, about 2,000 in a year. The citizens' mediation centers started doing 8,000 in a year because they were just a quick way of resolving by the process of mediation. In the area of judicial reform, many of us had been involved in many civil society groups, especially in the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, seeking judicial reform. We were dissatisfied about corruption in the judiciary and in the administration of justice. We were concerned about delays in the trial process. We held seminars, workshops, wrote articles urging reform. We made some progress, but it was only when I became Attorney General that we could really, working with friends and colleagues in civil society and in government, were able to do some work, especially with those who had been in the trenches of judicial reform activism, to make a difference. And I'll very quickly tell you the story of judicial reform in Lagos. We did a survey in 1999 of 200 lawyers who practice in the high courts of Lagos State. We asked a simple question, many questions, but a particular question. What is your perception of integrity of judges in the Lagos judiciary? So we had different answers: honest, dishonest, corrupt, very corrupt, notoriously corrupt. 89% said judges were notoriously corrupt. 89%. That was 1999. 89%. Now, if 89% of people, of lawyers who practice in the high courts of Lagos said that judges were notoriously corrupt, and from 1967, when the state was founded, up until 1999, when we did the survey, not a single magistrate or judge had been reprimanded for corruption or for wrongdoing. Everybody's file was clean, despite the fact that we all knew that the judiciary was notoriously corrupt. I met with the 7 most senior judges in Lagos State at the time, just as I was appointed Attorney General, showed them a blueprint that we had for the reform and the results of this survey that we had carried out. And everybody agreed that, look, it's a very serious problem. We have to find a way of addressing it. In the meeting with these 7 judges, we decided, look, let's even look at remuneration. Let's look at what the issues were. At the time, judges were earning 67,000 naira a month. That was in 1999. Around the table, we asked ourselves, okay, Justice X, you have a son in America, how much do you pay? $12,000 a year. Okay, we'll write it down. How about the one in Unilag, how much? 5,000, we'll write, all of these things we're writing down. One of them tapped me on the shoulder, Justice Longe tapped me on the shoulder and said, come, learned attorney. You two know that this thing we're doing is rubbish. You know you are pretending to pay us, and we are pretending to work. You know that. So we all decided not to fool ourselves and to address the serious concerns that were before us. Another judge said to, telling his story in that meeting, said, look, my wife called me early one morning after I had started sitting in court, that her daughter was sick and had been taken to St. Nicholas Hospital. I rushed to St. Nicholas Hospital to go and find out what was going on. I was told that they had stabilized her, but that if they had to admit her, I had to pay 17,000 naira. So I was explaining to them that I didn't have 17,000 naira, but I could go back to court, speak to my colleagues, hopefully raise the amount of money. They said, we're sorry. You have to pay a deposit. And if you don't have the deposit, we'll keep the child, but we can't admit. And the child is stable, you can take her somewhere else. So while they were at this, a man from behind him tapped him and said, please, sir, don't worry. We will pay this we'll pay the 17,000 naira. Don't worry. He said, I was so relieved. It was as if an angel came from heaven and saved me from my problem. He said, and the man paid, and my daughter was admitted and given a room. He said, as I was leaving, the clerk from the court who I came with said to me, he said, my lord, do you know this man? I said, I don't know him. I don't know where he came from. He said, the man was in our court last week. He is plaintiff in a land matter in our court. The judge said to all of us sitting around the table, he said, so what do you expect me to do? He said, could I go back and tell him, return the 17,000 naira? He said, could I go back and tell him, return the 17,000 naira? Or what will I do? At the end of the day, we all agreed that we had to do something about remuneration and about discipline. And we did. We brought in human resource experts. Femi Edun was one who led the team at that time. And they ensured that we were able to give a proper wage to judges. One of the things that we did was to ensure that every judge, once you become a judge, you have a home of your own, and it's yours for life. It's not an official residence, because that's one of the things that bother judges the most. Then discipline. In 6 months, we had sacked 22 magistrates. 3 judges had lost their jobs. Everybody knew that we were serious. When the World Bank, working with us, did that same survey in 2006, the same survey with 200 lawyers, 0% of lawyers said that judges in the High Court of Lagos were corrupt. 0%. What had happened? It wasn't as though the people became saints or anything. But first of all, they were decently paid. Secondly, they realized that there would be consequence. And that's the thing. So, my experience in the civil society was useful, and my organization, the Integrity, had been Ford and MacArthur Foundation grantees for many years. It was these 2 organizations that funded the early years of our reform efforts in Lagos State before budget funds kicked in. So there are advantages to being in a pressure group. I also believe very strongly, and one of my beliefs, again, as an individual, is that we must provide safety nets for the poor and vulnerable. The opportunity only came in 2015. Before the campaigns, Patutomi and I and Wale Edun, of course, who became Honorable Minister of Finance, wrote the social investment policy into the APC manifesto. It included school feeding, conditional cash transfers, the government enterprises, and promotions program, Empower, and all of that. I, of course, never imagined that I could become a vice presidential candidate or vice president. But I got a chance to serve in the government and became vice president. And the program saw the light of day. And I had the privilege of chairing the implementation between 2016 and 2019. As of 2019, we were feeding 9.6 million children daily, putting several farmers and cooks to work. We had over 500,000 graduates and non-graduates, granting microcredit to about 2.4 million people and all that. If Wale and I had remained outside partisan politics, maybe those modest achievements would not even have been made. The third reason, and I'm rounding up in a few minutes, why I think the elite must be involved in public service is that from my own faith, I'm a Christian, I believe that God holds us responsible for the destiny of our nations. And when I say us, I refer to those who are provided with education, with the means to make a difference. I know that the Quran also makes clear provisions. It says that it is He who has made you successors upon the earth and raised some of you above others in rank, that He may test you in what He has given you. The implication of that is clear. Greater privilege means greater responsibility before God. But participation for any serious-minded person involves some sacrifice. That's the thing. You can't participate without sacrifice, especially in our own society. You will risk your comfort zone, risk whatever reputation you may have, because you are bound to be attacked. In a country such as ours, participation is dangerous by itself. What my view is that it's not optional. We cannot pretend that all is well, where over 1 million Nigerians die annually from preventable or treatable diseases. The reasons why solutions are slow in coming is because the vast majority of these deaths are of poor and unseen people. That's why the solutions are not fast. If 1 million people die in a country every year, the reason why we are not outraged by it is because there are people we don't know. They are unseen. They are the poor. If every month, 150 passengers flying from Lagos to Abuja crashed and died, we will pay attention. no question, will pay attention. I was telling one gentleman who was saying to me that, look, everything, don't worry, this kidnapping, this and that. And I said, look, if kidnapped children were children from St. Saviour's School on Alexander Road, it would be a different response. Or Corona, it would be a different response. You know that. Someone asked me why I ran for office in 2022. Said, why did you run for office? Why? Why did you? And of course, as a pastor, you have you have so much metaphor. Every good pastor must have some metaphors. So I said, look, if your country, as our country, lay on an operating table, millions could die annually. Millions more could end up without education. You can't solve that problem by being vice president. You need the executive authority of the president. And after serving for 7 years and also acting as president for some months, I knew that I was very well equipped to deal with the issues. I could be that surgeon that will solve the problem. Now, I asked the gentleman, if your son or daughter lay on an operating table, and the guy who says it's best to do the job says, no, I don't feel like doing that job today. As a matter of fact, I will defer to my older brother to do it. How do you feel? So there's no question at all that if we don't take on the responsibility, if we don't, our societies lie in the greatest possible jeopardy, especially the Nigerian society. Some of us have to take on that responsibility in one shape or form or the other. I want to outline some issues very quickly that I think we must find solutions to. The first, as you know, is security. State police, fantastic step. The major advantage of that is that at least there will be some states with excellent policing arrangements and will not all be subject to one service that may be poorly run. And we can use more technology. We can invest in more specialized training for our military and for the police. The second is a social safety net for the poor and those who cannot work. That remains an ideological problem. I remember the first time we had a discussion on this issue. This was with some members of the cabinet, the central bank governor, and a few others about our social investment program. And we proposed 500 billion a year in the budget. Everybody shouted around the room, that's not sustainable. It's not this, it's not that. Until they were reminded that in 2009, 2010, when AMCON was established, 5.7 trillion naira was put forward to save about 300 big debtors and some banks. 5.7 trillion naira was put aside. We're talking 500 billion. In 10 years, we'll not spend 5.7 trillion on the vast majority of the poor in our country. So many times an ideological issue. Many times we're thinking, how can that be sustainable? How is it sustainable that will bring 5.7 trillion to save a few? The third is the rule of law and the administration of justice. The rule of law should give investors, business people, citizens the confidence that rules, not power, not influence, will decide outcomes. To be credible, disputes must be resolved by independent courts and bound by laid down precedents. That's how it's done everywhere. Legislation and enforcement must be certain. If you look at the administration of criminal justice, it's a problem. In the UK, the total population is maybe about 70 million people. They have 70,000 convicted prisoners. In the US, about maybe 200 million, 300 million people. They have 2 million convicted prisoners. Nigeria has 200 or so million people. We have only 28,000 convicted prisoners. 28,000. Not even half of Britain that has only 70 million people. is either we are remarkably well behaved or there's something wrong with the system. There must be something. Take a commercial case, for example. Look at how long it takes to decide a commercial case. 4 years in the High Court, sometimes 4.5 years in the Court of Appeal. Supreme Court, take another 4.5, 5 years. And sometimes you may not even get a date. It takes too long. The fourth thing is ethnicity and religion. Ethnicity and religion is an elite divide and rule tactic. Usually there is no substance in it. People say we're fighting for our regional positions. There is nobody from the Southwest who has been picked. Nobody from the South, but they are really fighting for themselves. You know, and I know that. No president who has come from any zone has materially improved the circumstances of the majority of his own ethnicity. None. Whether it's from the Northwest, whether it's wherever, none has materially can say, oh, when I was there is when my zone became. No. Because people expect nothing from government. So those who get elected have become rather like a Premier League team. Which Premier League team do you support? So we make a choice, and we drive people to make a choice based on ethnicity. Oh, so an Igbo man won, so Igbos are happy. But this is not a fight between Arsenal and Chelsea. It's about destiny of millions. It may mean the difference between millions dying and millions surviving. And many of us, of course, as you know, we are more careful about the choice of our doctors, even choice of footballers, than the choice of our elected leaders. Well, we are more careful, by far. We even sometimes go and hire a foreign coach to train our footballers. But when it comes to choice of the political leaders, a man from the Southwest will do. If anybody told you that you have a team, the Nigerian team playing in this World Cup, if we had, and they said, oh, the reason why they chose them is because they are all from the president's hometown, what will your reaction be? And we don't care if everybody in the team is called Musa Dalhatu, so long as they can score. Or if they are called Ikechukwu, so long as they can score. We don't care. But we are not. But when it comes to political leadership, we don't care. It can be anybody. The fifth is corruption. Corruption. Corruption affects everything, from the economy to security, to ease of doing business, everything. Dishonesty, the image of our country, lack of integrity. People just associate it with us. We must confront systemic corruption. The sixth is ease of doing business. Pre-investment approvals, visas, all of those things. The seventh is technology. Plan ahead, especially now that there is AI. Look at the loss of jobs. The other day I was looking at what the CEO, the co-founder of Anthropic was saying, that 50% of white-collar jobs, 50% of white-collar, entry-level white-collar jobs would be lost in the first 5 years, in the next 5 years, 50%. And we're seeing that already in the professions. We're seeing it in consulting. We're seeing it even in legal practice all over the world. The eighth is education and healthcare. We must plan ahead. We're growing at between 5 and 7 million people a year in this country. We have the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. So we don't just need schools. We need education. We need relevant education. Education that's fit for purpose. Education that prepares people for the 21st century. Look at healthcare. Every year, over 1 million Nigerians die from diseases and conditions that are treatable. We can do something about that also. But to do it, you need leadership to do it. Diarrheal diseases alone kill almost 150,000 people every year. You know, many newborn conditions continue to claim lives that are not necessary because effective interventions don't exist, or because too many people don't have access to the right type of treatment. We can raise resources. There's healthcare, financing, and all that. The last is people-centered governance. people-centered governance. Too often, we equate economic development with big business and investment. When you look at the way we even do our budgets, very frequently we are paying attention to business, to big business, to those who we believe will eventually drag everybody along, so-called trickle-down economics. But true development is about real improvement in the quality of lives of ordinary people. And this is far more complex than simply incentivizing investment. It requires us to focus on people rather than just projects. So let me conclude, by saying that, look, history teaches us that great societies are not built simply by great leaders. They are built by responsible citizens, and especially by an elite that is willing to put principle above self-interest, that is willing to put service above comfort, and the common good above personal gain. I hope it can be said of us that we honor the office of the citizen, that we fulfill the social contract that privilege has placed upon us, and that we left our country stronger, fairer, and perhaps more hopeful than we found it. Thank you very much.
Please, a big round of applause for Professor Shimbajo. Thank you very much, sir. I have the privilege of inviting the moderator to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chinedu. Your Excellency, thank you for a real rousing speech. I believe it was more of a call to action. Sir, may I ask you to please join me here? Sir, can I have a... Thank you. Wow. A real call to action, and I hope that many of us are already beginning to think and reflect on a lot of what we've heard today. You started off, sir, with actually more or less telling us off the fact that this room is full of the elite, as you described, and the fact that the heavier burden was on us. And it reminds me of the former US President John F. Kennedy's speech during his inaugural address, where he said, "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." I think that more or less, sums up what you've described today. You also spoke to us about the imperative for collective action. It's not just one person, but collectively, where you have a critical mass to be able to influence. You shared with us your journey, the opportunity that was presented, the call to serve, Attorney General to VP, and of course, your aspirations also to be president. And then you listed for us some of the challenges that we face as a society. So I believe that many of us would want to serve, so to speak, that is either seek elective office or accept appointments, any role at all in public service. But there's also a feeling amongst professionals, and even going through my mind now, that the unpredictability of risking one's sort of financial status, risking reputation, and yet we genuinely care about society. So what would you say to us, about sort of taking that first step to step into the arena, step out of our comfort zone? What advice would you give us such that, the fear of losing the financial security and peace of mind that we have, I think is a major, major hurdle for us. So it'd be great to hear from you on this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I think first, you're absolutely right that people will be concerned about the fear of just even getting out of your comfort zone, which is why most people anywhere, not just Nigeria, I suppose Nigeria is a bit more precarious, but anywhere, most people would rather not go into elective politics and all of that. And it's fair. I think that there are those who are prepared or who may be prepared to take the risk, but there's no question that there is a risk. There's a reputational risk. There's risk of, you're losing. There's risk of, there are all sorts of risks, no question. But I think that every decision, especially a decision to sell, would involve some sacrifice. It will involve taking a risk. But my sense is that we do not all have to be involved in elective politics. No, there's so many different ways of being influential in politics. So for example, especially where we are well placed to do so. So for example, look at the idea of, look at healthcare. Take maternal mortality. No, let's take infant mortality. On both scores, we are top 3 in the world, maternal or infant. Well, let's take infant mortality. Everybody recognizes, the World Health Organization recognizes that what we need to do is to train more birth attendants, more people who are skilled in attending to birth, not necessarily more doctors or nurses, but skills in birth, in attending to women at the point of birth, because it is at the point of birth that many children are lost and many also women die. Now we have a big problem there. Training birth attendants is resources and commitment. A group of people can do that. A group of people can say, okay, we're going to raise the resources to do this. How much does it cost? There are many times when, if we chose to do it, if we said even if they said, look, to train 5,000 in the north, let's just take the north, would require 5 billion, for example. We can raise that, we can raise the money. It's not so difficult to do. And there are excellent examples of countries where this has been done. Rwanda, for example, have an excellent program that they've done. They don't have more money than we have, but they've trained people. Teachers, just take teachers also. We have the largest number of out-of-school children in the world now. Now, we can do better. We know the states that have more out-of-school children than others. We can focus on those states, but what's the missing link? Train teachers. Now we have AI, we have all sorts of things, but the resources to do so. Of course, people can say government should do it, but we know that state governments, are responsible for education and healthcare. And many of them, of course, will say they have other challenges and that you don't necessarily win votes by these sorts of things. So those are spaces where we can play a significant role. And I'm talking about roles at scale, as opposed to just doing something small. Every one of us has something we do, maybe around our birthdays, go and do something nice, or give a few people scholarships. But to do something at scale, because that is what our positions enable us to do. We are influential in the marketplace, influential in finance. If we say we are going to do health financing, about 2 weeks ago, we had a health financing seminar looking at how a health financing roundtable, looking at how we can use capital markets or bring in institutional capital into health financing. There are lots of people who will be interested in that. So I think these things are possible.
Thank you very much. And because my question was going to be, what are the non-political ways? Because many of us don't want to step into the political arena. You've described some of that, especially as the elite actually have the convening power and the access to capital. But again, it's a challenge. I was talking to a local government chairman just yesterday, member of the elite as well. And the woes were, I get 300 million naira every month. What can I do? So instead of focusing on issues and health, primary healthcare, education, he's all over the place looking for money. So he's distracted from even disbursing the 300 million into, what it is he's supposed to do. So it's a big challenge. And whilst you say government cannot do everything, we also need to understand the environment that we live in, because security was one of the things you mentioned. So if we're talking about, having more birth attendants, especially in the areas where infant mortality and maternal mortality is higher, people then say, I'm not going to live here, to go to, a village in another part of the country to do this. So we need to be realistic about the issues and challenges that the elite themselves, when there's economic hardship, it's hardly likely that the little we have in our pockets is now going to go towards a campaign, and one of the questions that I have for you is, when people actually want to do something, they think their vote doesn't count. My voice doesn't count. My vote doesn't count. I've supported this, I've tried it. You yourself said, sir, that integrity, you were involved in, various other, social activities. But until you stepped into government, the influence was limited. So how would you encourage us or help us understand how our voices will count?
Let me say again that there is no society in the world that has not encountered the challenges that we're encountering. The question is, what is the willingness of the best placed in society to challenge those situations? You can't sit in your comfort zone and say things are going to change. No. The local government chairman who says he gets 300 million, there needs to be a challenge. 300 million is not what he should be getting. No. He has to get more money. Who is going to speak up? Who is going to say...
Ikoyi Obalende, for that matter.
Yeah, but who is going to say, that's not the amount of money you should be getting? Who is going to speak up? There is no elite anywhere in the world. If we sit down and say, I don't want trouble, we are going to go, we'll be round and round the same cycle. So the problem is whether or not we are prepared to step out of our comfort and even make a complaint. We are not prepared, and which is really the reason why. That I told you, somebody asked me, why did you run for president? Why did I run? How do you ask that kind of question in a society where we have all these challenges? And somebody says, I have been prepared for the task. Why shouldn't I? But that's the point. I'm saying that there is no easy way of solving the challenges of a country, a diverse country such as ours with extreme poverty. There's no easy way, which is why I'm saying if the elite do not step out and take the bull by the horns, one way or the other, as they say, one day the story will catch up with us. One day it will.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for that. I think, again, from what you said, one of the challenges is how will we ever get that critical collective mass to make a difference? I was talking to a senator a couple of weeks ago, and a lady for that matter, her challenge was that, there are going to be fewer of us this time around than previously, and that there weren't enough. So again, this is about maybe gender in a way, but when you have 3 or 4 who actually want to do something positive, who want to make an impact, it's how do we convene, how do we get the critical mass of us in the legislature, for example. And I agree with what you said, that we probably have to go through the hoops. We will spend money, we will lose money, we will fail, we will lose elections, but it's about just plodding on, but then we look at our pockets again and say, diesel, power, children's school fees, healthcare, and so on. It's that trade-off that is a challenge. I think your journey, you were fortunate, sir, because you kind of went straight, you got an appointment before elective office. Getting appointments, and we all know the fiasco that, is entertaining us, at the moment, and saddening us as well, but even getting appointments, it's not easy.
But let me say to you, first of all, there's no question at all that amongst 200 million people, if you get nominated to be vice president of your country, you're indeed fortunate. But the question really is not so much the good fortune of being, it is more whether or not you're even committed to doing something or making a difference, which is why I traced my own journey from the burden to do something. And what tends to happen is that if we have a burden to do something and we start doing something, we are more likely to get into positions where we can actually do something. As I said, I mean, I believe that, look, we must fight corruption, must fight judicial. We're in all the pressure groups and all that to do so. Now, those pressure groups may not be able to do scale. They may not be able to. But at the time, we were not even in a position to do so. But we can do scale in some other areas. We can do scale, as I said. If you raise the resources, we can do scale. If we raise money, we can do scale. If you raise money, even for politics, you can do scale. We couldn't get a dime from the elite, from our own, we couldn't get a dime, one little dime. So, hey, people are saying we are concerned about diesel, we're concerned. In other places of the world, people will come out and say, let us fight for the future of this country. Why is it that we are unable to make those decisions? That some people must make some sacrifices. Sure. And I think that there's everywhere, people have the same concerns. Everywhere. People have those same concerns that what will happen to me if I stick my neck out? What happens to my comfort, school fees, for the same problems that everybody has. But we must be committed to something. We must.
And you've spoken about us as individuals stepping into the ring. You served as board member and chairman of Citibank. How do you think institutions can also quietly contribute to national stability, growth, governance, without becoming politically exposed? So what affects us as individuals as to why we don't want to get into politics? Institutions also kind of back out. I mean, I've had people say, I want to get into politics, but I don't want to be a PEP. Yeah. For example, that is a major barrier for a lot of people. My accounts abroad I've had for 30 years, I don't want it closed. So it's the same thing with institutions. They don't want to be politically exposed or compromised. Yeah. So what advice would you give institutions that want to make a change?
I think institutions in our part of the world, the developing world, must address some concerns because of just because we're located here, just because we are located in this part of the world. Now, there are safe things that institutions can do. We've talked about human capital development. That's an area that any institution can participate in. And these are huge problems for the country. So if an institution says we're going to devote our time and attention to training, as we said, birth attendants, we're going to devote our time and attention to education, to training teachers, that's safe space. So it's possible to contribute without necessarily exposing oneself politically.
And even supporting the communities in which they operate. One last question before we throw it open to our colleagues here. If you could ask every professional in this room to take one concrete civic action in the next 9 to 10 months, what would it be and why?
Okay, I'll say that I wouldn't ask any individual.
Okay.
I'll say that because you already have a group, you have collaboration, what can you do collaboratively? That's what I would prefer. That's sort of advice. Because really it's about collaboration, it's about coming together. And I'll say that if this group, if the Nib-Citi group could pick one of those 8 or 9 issues that I identified, just one, pick human capital development. It's safe. Say we're going to train we're going to train 5,000 birth attendants in 5 years, because we know that will reduce maternal mortality or infant mortality. That will be something.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'll just remind us of what Prof had said. So security, the areas that we could look at: security, the social safety net for the poor, the rule of law and administration of justice, ethnicity and religion, ease of doing business, technology, education and healthcare, and people-centered governance. I hope I haven't missed any out. And the last thing he did say when he was speaking was that great societies are not built by great leaders, but rather by conviction of the elite to make a difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we have questions for our distinguished guests here. please just raise your hand. We have roving mics. There's Udwak over there. Sorry? Roving mic. No, roving mic. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm sure you can hear me.
And we also have questions online. So, Mikhail, let me know, please, any questions online that we should ask Prof. Yes.
Very straightforward and simple. But I'm very sure you answered it, but just to connect it. There's this saying that the people deserve the leadership they get. And when I look at the type of, but I say Nigerians generally, I wonder whether we really deserve good leadership. Because sometimes I just look at my very poor, I won't say very poor, because they are not that too poor, maybe artisans working for me, and I see simple things they want to steal, simple things they want to do something wrong, simple things they won't want to do it right. Then that's what time I just started, I said, is this the person I keep fighting for? Say, look, this government don't think of the poor masses, this government. And I said, do we really deserve good leadership as a people? So when we look at those 8 things, and we think about weaponizing poverty, maybe you've answered it too, but you just connect the dots. If we attend to those 8 key things you say, maybe the people will now start feeling differently, not being weaponized by poverty, wanting to steal at every small thing, such that when you now see them in leadership position, they can never do good.
Thank you. Thank you. Prof, would you want to take one more question maybe, or do you want to address this? Okay.
I think we have 2 more.
Okay.
Ma'am, can we try for maybe 4, 5 max?
Yes, but
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
think we also need to pay attention to those online if they have questions. There's
Yes.
a hand here.
We
On
actually
this table
so
right here.
I have a lady first. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Bola. And Your Excellency, my name is Fumi Ogunlesi, and I had the privilege of also being on the board with you in those days, and actually also having you as a pastor when you sent us all out. You came in, and your first sermon was about change, and then we were all in Ikoyi very happy, and you sent us all out to go and get involved in various social activists. I was a lawyer, and you set me up, thank you very much, for free legal advice. That was one of the ministries that you had. But and I would like to commend you and thank you for your consistency. Because really from the days that we knew you, even then on the board, and as you said, the anti-subsidy, you were out there, you've been very consistent. And that is extremely inspiring. My question has to do with fighting cynicism. Sincere cynicism amongst the elites. And the last question was an example of that cynicism, but it cuts across a lot of things. I used to go to Abuja, and I still do, a lot in terms of my former roles and current roles. And you dealt with government officials, and you honestly wondered to yourself whether this was a family you yourself wanted to join, given the fact that not so much in terms of so much of the corruption, but also in terms of the inability for good intentions to be translated into genuine executive action on the ground. So if you know Bena Kabweze, and I know different people, okay, and Elama and so on, who, if you ask them about their experience, it is mixed. In terms of they came there with a lot of optimism and did some things, but not to the extent that they would have wanted to. And so there's this fight back. The vested interests seem to have much more power than the well-intentioned, nice elites. Thank you.
For me, and we'll take one more. There's one right here.
I have a question too.
Sorry, before your question.
Yeah,
please, can you give him the microphone?
Thank
you.
He's been waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, sir, I sent you an
question,
email.
Please, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yesterday that addressed some of the issues we raised. Then the other one is, just like Fumi just mentioned, people in Nigeria are more concerned about complaining. Even on the city platform, people take so much pleasure in complaining. And every time I say, look, if we spend half as much energy on complaining as we do on finding solutions, we'll be out of the woods in no time. Singapore that we all talk about, if you read about the story of Singapore, the type of challenges that Lee Kuan Yew faced, it wasn't like they were fantastic human beings, but he didn't allow all of the cynicism and the opposition to prevent him from delivering. The same example you shared about the judiciary in Lagos, when you got in there, it was rotten.
What's the question, please?
No, the question is comment, not questions.
All right.
Comment that, look, Nigeria is not hopeless. Don't let us be discouraged by what we see. If we as elites come together with an intention of making a difference, we can really make a difference. And like I said, I sent you an email yesterday. The name is Tony Yewole. If you look at it, some of the issues you addressed some of the issues you raised were addressed in that email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we have to wrap up pretty soon because the football match is going to start in a few minutes, and I think Prof has an interest in that as well. So maybe just one last one, quick one, and then we'll hand over to Prof and then round up. Thank you. Oh, there's a hand. Is that Gwega? Gwega Shongunuga. Gwega, go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Gwega Shongunuga. I've got a combine for you. You started off talking about...
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Can we keep it down, please? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
About the importance of creating a safety net for the less to do. You spoke about creating a safety net for those who are not as well off in society. And when you're in government, you were involved and led initiatives. One of them was the trader money. And I'd just like to ask that since you've left government, have you looked at it and do you still feel that was that the manner in which it was rolled out was positive for the country? Personally, I'm a bit critical about it, and my concern really is the scope for the political class to weaponize it and to abuse it, and whether it can be sustained.
Thank you, Gwega. I'll hand over to...
I just want to mention one other thing. I really loved your Executive Order 1, and I really believe that we need to implement that.
Please, can we have quiet whilst we have our special guest of honor here? Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Gwega.
I believe we need to implement that Executive Order 1 in order to change the relationship between the governed and the government in this country. Just before you left office, you managed to get that codified into law. I hope that you have not given up on seeing it implemented, and I'd really like to hear, what you're doing from the background to see that it actually gets implemented someday. Thank you.
Prof, loaded. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think it was Uduak started with the people deserve the leadership they get, and that we can do better and all that. But first, let me say, and I want to just make a general point, and it also addresses to some extent the cynicism and all that. Something I have discovered from serving in government at various times is that we have not had an opportunity to change this country. We haven't made the effort. The effort hasn't been made to actually change the country. We haven't. So time after time, cycle after cycle, it's just been, well, let's just see how far we can go. There's been no effort to really, and I'm talking of the civilian administration from 1999, no serious effort to transform the country. Because when you are transforming a country, someone gave the example of Singapore. You're dealing with all sorts of issues. You're dealing with ethics. You're dealing with civic responsibility. You're dealing with honesty, corruption, all of those kinds of things. You are dealing with issues that are fundamental to the shaping of a society. So it's not just a matter of how much are we spending on this or that. It's a transformational effort, and we haven't really made that effort. And that's the honest truth. We haven't made that effort. I believe very strongly, for example, that if you want to make the effort to transform a country, you must have consequences for every single wrongdoing. You must strengthen your judiciary in such a way that there's consequence. One of the important things, and I gave the example of Lagos State, was that we said you must have a judiciary that is strong, that is independent. We went out looking for those who would be in that judiciary, people who had the right pedigree, people who we could act. We actually went out looking. And then we subjected them to tests because we believe that a strong judiciary is crucial. Look, whether or not, look at people who steal. And the other day I saw some video that Kemi Adeosun did on who is stealing from you, and talked about how, people who you engage steal. It is pilfering at the job is so common that it discourages people from even setting up branches or even businesses, because you have to be paying attention to every little thing. But there must be consequence. If there is consequence for stealing, and I'm talking of stealing, whether it is small stealing or big stealing, whether it's stealing in church or stealing in government, there must be consequence. There must be serious consequence for misconduct. That's the first step to an orderly society. And it must be done without fear or favor. The first step, consequence, there must be. When I was Attorney General, and this is the point I'm making, that look, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure put, especially by ourselves, by our elite. The daughter of a bishop, of a retired bishop, had beaten her house help to death, right? Obviously, this was just in a rage, and the girl died. Anyway, cut a long story short, we had to prosecute. I signed off on the prosecution at about 7:30 in the evening, of the particular evening, just to say, yes, I approve, go ahead and prosecute to the DPP. Before I got home, this was Alausa, before I got home in VGC, it took probably maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes in those days. I had received 3 phone calls from very well-respected religious leaders who said, look, this is the daughter of a bishop. It's not right. After all, you're a pastor. It's not right for you to do this kind of thing. You are there for a time such as this. These are the sorts of things. And that's the sort of pressure that you get. But you see, if there's determination to solve the problems of a society, we start by laying the groundwork, the rule of law, orderly society first. There must be the rule of law. We haven't made the effort, which is the point I'm making. Even in the anti-corruption fight, we haven't made the effort. So I don't think we should be cynical yet. If we made the effort and we failed, I would say, okay, it's time for cynicism, but we haven't. You and I, who are seated in this room, have not had the kind, and if we're honest with ourselves, we haven't had the government that we will say, okay, you are sure these guys will do the job, and they're doing the job. We haven't. That's a problem we're always going to have. State government, for example. There are people who say, oh, what we need now is to go back to the regions. Go back to the regions. Once we go back to the region, everything will be all right. It's not true. You and I know that everything will not be all right. State governments are not doing many state governments are not doing what they ought to do. Every once in a while, you see a star. You see a state government that's doing very well. Everybody shouts, yes, yes, yes. So we haven't got to the point. My view is that we must decide whether or not we want to lift this country forward. So I'm not worried about the man on the street who is stealing, who is pilfering, because people in government are stealing. People even in religious organizations are stealing. People in your sector, in the banking sector, are stealing large sums of money. There is no consequence. Look, you people ask yourselves. Maybe Maybe, I mean, the Citibank has, at least was able to maintain, as a matter of fact, let's go there anyway. But Citibank was able to at least maintain a certain degree of integrity in its functions and all that, right? But look at the banking industry itself. It's a problem. But there must be consequence. If you say, if somebody steals, he must go to jail. That's how it works everywhere, and you can't do that. There was a head of state of a country, I don't want to go into who it was, a head of state of a country who was telling me that, and this is a country that is reputed now for doing very well, here in Africa, he was saying to me that at the time, his brother-in-law was working as the deputy governor of the central bank of his country. And his brother-in-law and some others had defrauded the institution. He said he had to make a decision whether to send his brother-in-law to ensure that his brother-in-law went to jail or did not go to jail. He said it would have been easier for him if it was his own brother, but it was his brother-in-law. He said when he made the decision, he knew that this was going to be a turning point for the country. And it was. It turned out to be. We have to do something. We haven't started the business yet. This is the point. So I don't really worry myself too much about people pilfering. We haven't done the work. We haven't started. When we do the work, we will see the results. But we haven't started that work. So our drivers will steal from us. If as the driver is stealing from the petrol, if we're stealing on petrol money, the person who is selling petrol from him is stealing from him as well. The depot owner or the depot person too is stealing money, is stealing from. So everybody is stealing, all the way down to those who at the time were not bringing in enough petrol in the first place. So it's a whole chain of dishonesty and stealing. And we have to deal with that fundamentally before we begin to worry ourselves about all these other people. I don't know whether I've been able to answer the question of, because for me, the question on cynicism, thank you so much for your kind comments. The question on cynicism and government officials, I think it's a general thing. If you look at the likes of Oke and Elama and several others who were in government at the time, they went out of government quite disappointed because they expected that they would be able to get stuff done. And they were not able to. Oke, for example, because Oke wanted to do the special economic zones and all of that, and because of the clashes he was having, they actually wanted to arrest him, right? Again, it just comes to the same question. You must have the kind of leadership that is prepared to transform society. Once you have that kind of leadership, everybody can come in and function effectively. We really need to get to the point where we are able to find the leadership that will make that difference. Otherwise, we're always going to come back to this cycle of disappointments and disappointments and disappointments. Every society that has made the kind of progress we are talking about has had to make these sacrifices and choose leadership that can make a real difference. That's how it works. And for us, I suppose we will always have ourselves, when I say ourselves, the elite, to blame for saying, okay, what are we doing about ensuring that we have the right leadership? I think, Toyi, I think you've already, I must have answered your question somewhere in the line, because I agree with you that there's no point losing hope, because we haven't even started the journey. We should start the journey before we start losing hope. Boyga, you wanted to know about this social safety net and trader money. Let me say to you that, first of all, the design of trader money was so well done, and the execution of it. Now, there are political comments and all of that, but let me explain how trader money was done. So, the Bank of Industry, led by Tony Adeniji at the time, Tony Adeniji was executive director. They developed what was called the growth platform. The growth platform was the enumeration of informal traders all over Nigeria. We enumerated in all about 4 million informal traders. And that enumeration was a very rigorous process with their photographs, biometrics, and all that. And we had an office where all of that was done in the BOI, as well as on the 4th or 5th floor of the NDPHC, the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, where we had almost 50 young men and women whose business was just to attend to the enumeration. And they were the ones who made disbursements to these individuals. The idea was that if you got 10,000 naira, if you paid back, you'd be given 20,000 naira and all of that. And these were informal traders. When we went round launching in the markets, of course, we were not. People gave the impression that we carried a bag of cash. Certainly that didn't happen. I'm sure you never saw any such thing. That's not how it was done. This was a very, by the way, the growth platform till today continues to be the reference point for the World Bank on microcredit. That platform is still in existence. It still works. So the question is that how do you do microcredit at scale without the sort of thing that we did? There's no other way. You must do it at scale. Of course, there'll be many, many faults. There'll be problems, there'll be issues. But you must do it at scale. If you have 80% informal traders as the bottom of the pyramid, and that's really how your economy functions, you must find a way of providing them with credit. And that's exactly what we did. We found a way of providing them with credit. And it was, while it worked, while it was there up until 2019, it was effective. It was very, very effective. And I believe that we must still do something at scale to be able to do so. Same thing with our homegrown school feeding program. Oh, people said, can you feed children across Nigeria? But that's the only way. Homegrown school feeding is homegrown school feeding. We're able to do 30 states, 9.6 million children. Mrs. Mariam Uwais, was head of the social investment policy. And she worked, and she worked very hard on ensuring the integrity of those programs. Up from 2016 to 2019, we had an interministerial committee that worked on it. It worked. It is possible for these things to, of course there will be flaws. And people will say, oh, it's politics, it's politicization. How can you give people money? But how else do you do it? That's microcredit. How else do you do it? Homegrown school feeding. If we're feeding 30 million children today, it will be easier for government to argue that, look, we're dealing with the problems of hunger and malnutrition. By now, we could be doing 30 million, depending on how we want to look at it. So these things are hard to do. They are difficult to do, and they'll come with criticism. They're very, very hard to do. But we can do them. We can deliver them if we're serious. We can deliver them. We can tweak where we have problems, but they can be delivered. It's entirely possible to do these things. And I think that one of the reasons why, too, and there's a young man called Uzoma, I forget his surname now, who is the head of the Credit Corps today. He was the CEO of the growth platform, of the Trader Money Program. Excellent work that these people did at the time. And I think that it can be built upon. More improvements can be made on it. And I think it's perfectly sustainable, which is my conclusion on that. And you talked about Executive Order 1. With every one of these things, it's political will. At the end of the day, it's political will. Ease of doing business, doing things properly and all of that is political will. Everywhere where these things have succeeded, they have been, first of all, the commitment of the number one from president down has been without doubt. That's the only way to succeed. You can't change things here in this country, for example, without commitment from the very top. The president must be able to say, hey, look, if you, immigration, if for any, or corporate affairs commission, if you default, this is what is going to happen. people must understand that heads will roll if the executive orders and these other processes are not kept to the letter. There has to be, once that's not there, then there's really no way that it will work. So for me, I think that that's really the kind of commitment that's required, and I can only hope. I mean, I'm not directly involved in government, and there's very little I can do from where I sit as a retired public servant to to make much of a difference in that. I think those are the questions that have been asked.
I think you've covered all the questions, and you responded to Boyega's first question, but I'm sure if you took a poll of those of us in this room and asked us how do we think trader money was done, I'm sure most people here would say, they were carrying bags of money around. So maybe a lesson for government is about sort of, continuous education narrative. I know you did a lot of that in terms of putting the information out there, but is that cynicism that causes us sometimes to be blind to reality and perceive, what we think? Thank you very much for your responses. I think we're going to round up now, but I'll just read out a comment from online. It's from Funke Oshibodu. And she says there's a lot private sector can do without government. Citibank platform did a lot to change the Nigerian financial system. And she says kudos and thank you for a lovely presentation. And before I hand over the microphone to Remy, who will do the vote of thanks, or hand it over to Chinedu, I also want to recognize, the fact that there are ex-bankers, ex-NIB staff who have actually stepped out of their comfort zone into the public space. I mean, one of them here is Shola Oworun. Shola was special advisor for 4 years, and then she was also commissioner in Lagos State Commerce and Industry, and largely responsible for the Lagos Free Trade Zone establishment and so on, and currently chairs the Free Zone agency. So Shola, well done. And of course, our star, Alex Oti. I hear Alex is also online. Your Excellency, Alex Oti. We also hear fantastic stories of what you're doing in Abia State. And I believe there are others here and also not present who have taken up government appointment or sought elective office. So we will, I guess, I'll leave that for the leadership of the alumni platform to see what it is that we can do collectively. Of course, accountability is important. If we say we're going to do something, then we should come back to you to also tell you what it is that we're doing. So I think I've discharged my duties. I hope I've been able to do it creditably. And thank you very much, Prof, for your candor, because I think it's also important that this being a safe space for us to be able to talk. Thank you for responding to the questions, some of them a bit tricky. I wanted to bring up trader money, but I said, let me not step on Prof's too. But Boy Guy is a rascal, so, he decided to do the honors of that. Thank you very much, sir. I'll hand the microphone over now to Mikhail. I think we'll just stay here, right? Okay, thank you.
I would like to say a very big thank you, sir. You can see my voice. Can you see it now? Okay. So in about 2015, 2016, there was an Ikoyi problem with a rape case. I was involved as someone who saw the matter. School that had finished the term, and the girls they passed my street along the Awolowo, off Awolowo. That day, there were 60 boys, 60 girls that were trapped along the street, and guys of that same number were chasing the girls up and down. And there had been like 2 rape cases we heard of. Suffice to say, we, myself and a group of young men, walked the girls down from Awolowo Road to Ikoyi, and they told us their story. Had been sexually harassed. Sorry. Thank you, ma'am. 4 had been sexually harassed. Their clothes torn. It's a long story. Long and short of it was, we wanted to prosecute to stop that practice, that when school closes, you would tear their clothes, you would write on their clothes. It was, I got in my mail, I'm sure, over 100, I'm documenting that story, but over 100 persons wrote how they finished school and were raped and their lives changed. So when we wanted to take it to court, we didn't get, we just had quiet. No one wanted to touch our case. And it took a call from his office. His wife actually called me to say, how are you coping, Michelle? I was like a basket case. The first set of persons that came to my response were city bankers. Okaima called me. 2 other city bankers went on that case. Lawyers first went to the school before I even gathered myself. So when I'm grieved, I write. When I'm happy, I write. And I wrote that day that I saw something astonishing. Over 8 guys harassing a girl. They would just kick her behind. She'd drop. Then they'll pull her close. And I ran across to stop them. Then there was another one. And it was like an avalanche of them. Suffice to say, we were in court for 3 years. We won the case, and the Commissioner of Police joined us because of what his office did. I'm not even sure you know that there is such a thing. But I remember the grief when we couldn't get anyone to touch us because it's a sensitive thing. And you don't, the family ran. The 4 girls that told us freely their story, I will never forget one. She said, if I tell my mother, I'll stop going to school. I've been raped, my sister's been raped, but we don't tell them. So we joined with 4 other law firms who came pro bono. We sat in court over that 3-year period, won the case. The police have instituted now that when Lagos State finishes their educational sessions, you will see rapid response in almost every school. That was a fallout of it. So you've never taken your flowers, sir. Take your flowers. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Outstanding. A big round of applause. May I suggest a standing ovation? May I suggest a standing ovation? Okay. Those online can be sending those love signs and clapping signs. You can have your seat. Thank you very much. Okay, I think first I want to thank Bola for such an outstanding work in moderation. And of course, Professor Shimbajo for an exceptional and insightful and educative commentary. Those things you've articulated, I'm going to cram them and be able to use them someday. But more than that, it's a call you've made for the elite to engage in the transformation of the country. And the very candid comment you made also that journey hasn't actually started. And that's a very profound comment. Thank you for that. At this point in time, I would like to invite the chief organizer of this event, which is Mrs. Remi Odunlami. Please, Remi. Remi likes to operate from the background. So you'll be seeing Edere, you'll be seeing, the Kingsley Ezenekwe or Kaima, but the person pulling a lot of those strings is Madam Odunlami. Okay, I used to work for her. She's my boss. Please, Remi, command of the vote of thanks, and also there's a presentation that is due. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very bad with protocol, but Your Excellency, Mobola, ladies and, yes, I've renamed you. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues on the Zoom link, because I understand we have almost as many people on Zoom as we have here. And I think that this is one of the biggest events that we've had. I'm not sure that even our Christmas party had this kind of level of attendance. By the time we strip out the spouses, so Prof, thank you very much. Everybody's here because of you. Not because of me, not because of the committee and everything that we've done, but because of you and your presence. We appreciate you. We appreciate you as a member of the family, because you are a member of the Nib-Citi family, and it's something that we don't forget. We thank all those who came. We thank Bola for her, for initiating it, because she was the original proponent of this kind of idea. We thank you for coming. We hope you will come back again. We hope you'll come back not just as our guest of honor, but as a member of this family. And yes, we know that when you make your speeches and you speak of various things that you get, speaking is a career. So you do get a lot more than we can offer. But we just like to make this very small token of our appreciation. Thank you. We are totally unable to do what we should do because this is just a family affair. It's not Citibank. It's just the... No, we need to make that clear. It's not Citibank. It's not Citibank sponsored. It's just your alumni coming here. Yes. But, for our moderator, yes, I know. I don't even know whether we should give you anything. Maybe I'll keep it for myself. But never mind. We wanted to appreciate the effort, appreciate the thought, and appreciate all you've done for us. I know that people have a lot more that they would like to say, a lot more that they would like to, a lot more questions they'd like to ask. I know that our colleagues on Zoom also had questions, but unfortunately we don't have the time. Next time, we will plan on an entire evening. This time, I thought we were going to be constrained by World Cup, but I think the World Cup has taken a second place. But for those who want to stay on, we do have the World Cup. You can watch the second half at least. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you again, Prof, our brother, our director, our family member. Thank you.